Let us begin with our prayer before study. Christ my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom and learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work. For to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. All right. I do have papers for some of you, because Luke and Olivia were not here. Here you go, madam. And then I will take your overbreak papers. It's got a post-it note. He wants me to make sure it looks special. Good do. Good do.
I did, but I didn't have to.
All right, thank you. Hold on, I'm thinking. Mostly the problem is I'm on the wrong page. Yeah, I want to tell you that at the end. Let us look at our art. This is very different.
I think that's a picture of my book.
Yes, you know what? A bunch of people held up their books on Tuesday and said, wait, that's the front of my book. Yes, so now you know the bigger picture. This is it's obviously not ancient Greek art. That should be obvious to us by now. This was 1700s, 1800s, a French artist who just painted a lot of paintings of classical scenes, of Greek scenes. I believe, no, that was Hamilton. We looked at some paintings of the Trojan War, like scenes from the Trojan War. So this is the death of Socrates. And so he's surrounded by his companions. This book that you're reading out of, we're not going to read the other two dialogues that are in it. But if you just thought that Socrates is a pretty cool guy, and you'd like to check out at some point what else he has to say, I will tell you that in the Crito, he has a friend, Crito, who comes to the prison. By the way, they didn't execute Socrates immediately. You all, this is not a spoiler. You guys read the apology, so you know they sentenced him to death. And they didn't usually keep people in prison. Being imprisoned wasn't a thing, really, in the ancient world for long periods of time. But there was a ship that went to Delos every year, not having anything to do with the Delian League in this case. It was because the island was sacred to Apollo, and it was a thing. Every year, the sacred ship went for offerings to Apollo, and you couldn't execute anyone during that time. It took about 10 days, right? It was a week, 10 days that they sailed there and did whatever they were doing on the island for religious purposes and came back. So he was there waiting for the ship to come back. And as soon as the ship came back, the next day they would execute him. So he had this time in between, and his friend came and said, Socrates, we've got friends. We can pull strings. We can smuggle you out of here. Even the jailer thinks this is a travesty of justice. It's easy. You could go live somewhere else and live, and keep doing what you do. And he wouldn't go. And I'm not going to tell you what reasons he gave, because maybe you want to read the Crito and find out. It's very short. It's probably shorter than Euthyphro, and that was pretty short. The other one that's always in this collection, The Last Days of Socrates, is called the Phaedo. It's this. It's the day he died. a man named Fido meets some other friends, and they say, "Oh, what did you hear about Socrates? What happened that day?" Like, "Oh, I heard the story from so and so, or I was there, and let me tell you." And he retells in a pretty long dialogue what happened that day. And much of it is his friends say, "Socrates, we're really upset because we don't know what we're going to do without you. And you're going to die." And he says, why do you think that's so bad? He's like, "Well, how do you know you won't just be annihilated? How do you know there's life after death?" So a lot of it is him trying to convince his friends that his body will die, but he won't completely disappear. And then some of it is a description of this scene. We see, so they mixed poison, hemlock, in a cup and gave it to him to drink. And this is the jailer, this is the guy whose job it is to give it to him, and even he can't look at him, even he is grieved. And everybody's just, oh, this guy can't even look at him. He's so upset. But look what Socrates is doing. I'm going to go to a better place. I'm going to go to the place where things really are. Everything here is just kind of copies. Everything here is not total reality, but I'm going to go to the place where total reality is. Why would you be upset for me? So this is the scene that our artist David has painted for us, and yeah, we will just leave it here to meditate on. What you did read for me first was Euthyphro. Was this difficult to follow? Was it easy to follow? Was it somewhere in the middle?
I thought it was like in the middle.
In the middle. Did it start out pretty easy to follow? "Hey, Socrates, oh, fancy meeting you here. What are you doing?" So she's like, "Well, somebody is taking me to court, and they're bringing me upon charges." "What are you doing here, Euthyphro?" And do you remember what Euthyphro is doing there? Why is he at the courts?
He's bringing charges against his father.
Mm-hmm. And what did his dad do?
Killed somebody for killing someone else.
And didn't even kill him. Right? So, got two slaves. Slave one kills slave two. Slave one is in trouble. Euthyphro's dad says, "I'm going to put you in this ditch or pit or cistern or whatever, slave one, while I go and talk to the authorities and see what should be done with you." And while he was gone, the guy died. Apparently they didn't care for him. I don't know if he was wounded and they didn't take care of the wounds, or they didn't give him enough food or water or whatever. He died. So Euthyphro has decided to charge his dad with murder. What is your reaction to this? Does this seem fair to you?
Nope.
Why not? What's wrong with that? Somebody did die, and it was his dad's fault.
He didn't do it intentionally.
Okay, there's thing number one. Even today, we make a distinction, right, between murder and manslaughter. If you don't do it intentionally, it's not as bad. Somebody's still dead. But it's not as bad to maliciously do it. So first of all, at the very most, there's manslaughter involved here. Does Euthyphro seem to think that he's really, really right? He's on the right side. He's doing the right thing. Yeah, he does. He does. And that leads us into our dialogue. That part's pretty easy to follow. There's some parts in the middle where Socrates gets a little convoluted, asks some questions. But let's take a look at it together. To the beginning. So Socrates, Euthyphro says at the beginning, "Well, what are you doing here, Socrates?" And since we looked in the apology, I asked you what are the charges against him. in Euthyphro, he mentions the charges too. Here's what he says. He claims I'm a manufacturer of gods. And he says this is why he's prosecuted me, that I create new gods and don't recognize the old ones. So let's file that away, and we can compare it to what he says in the Apology. So Euthyphro tells his stories. And Socrates says, my word, Euthyphro, does that mean that you think you understand religion so exactly? Matters holy and unholy, that is, that you have no misgivings about the circumstances you describe? Aren't you afraid in taking your father to court that you might turn out to be doing an unholy deed? No, I'd be of no use, Socrates, nor would Euthyphro differ at all from the common herd of men, if I didn't understand the details of all things of this sort. Remarkable, Euthyphro. In that case, it would be best for me to become your pupil. Before I defend this prosecution against Meletus, I could challenge him on this very point. I'd say that for my part, I'd always, even in the past, considered it of great importance to know about religious matters, and that now, since he claims that I'm at fault in improvising and innovating on questions of religion, I have naturally become a pupil of yours. And presuming, Meletus, I could say, that you admit that Euthyphro is an authority in such matters, you must accept that my beliefs are true too and not bring me to court. Look, Meletus, guy who's taking me to court. I'm sorry if I've offended anyone, but I've become a student of Euthyphro, and Euthyphro knows everything about the gods. He knows everything about holiness and piety, and so if I have been mistaken in the past, I'm not going to be mistaken anymore because I have the best teacher ever. Do you think Socrates is serious when he says all of this? Would you think he was serious if we didn't have the rest? Because he's about to show Euthyphro that he doesn't know much about it at all. That's what he's about to do. First of all, do you think Socrates knows he's about to do this? Probably. If Socrates isn't serious, do you think he's being snarky? What is he being rude to him? Because either he's being serious or he's mildly making fun of him. Is there another choice? And I'm legitimately asking this question because I don't know. I'm not fishing for an answer. Is there another? He's mildly making fun of him, or he's dead serious. Well, he's not the guy who's pressing charges. It's Meletus. It's someone else. Euthyphro is just an acquaintance of his.
And then he's trying to get on his good side that way.
Maybe, but what does he have to get from getting on his good side, do you think? Well, that's the thing. Somebody might say something like that to butter someone up. This is true. Maybe that'll be a question we'll just have to live with for a while. I agree with you guys. I don't think Socrates is serious. I don't think he legitimately thinks Euthyphro is going to be the greatest teacher ever. And when we talk about the Apology, we'll see why he treats him this way. So he says, well, here's the thing, Euthyphro. All you need to do is tell me what you say holiness is and unholiness. Just tell me. Just tell me what it is. And this is the first question I asked you. What does he first say it is, and what does Socrates think is wrong with his answer?
He says that holiness is what he's doing.
Yeah. What I'm doing right now. I'm Exhibit A, holiness. Prosecuting a man for murder, even if he's my dad. What does Socrates not like about that definition?
It's not a definition.
It's not a definition. What is it?
It's an example.
It's an example. You can't ask someone, what is a dog? And they say, well, I don't know. Beagles and Chihuahuas. That tells me nothing. That gives me no information about dogs. just giving examples. You can't use examples for a definition. But this is the first thing Euthyphro does. He gives an example. And Socrates corrects him, gently, I think. Do you remember that this wasn't what I was asking you to give me? One or two examples from a multitude of holy things. I asked you for that special feature through which all holy things are holy. For you were in agreement, surely, that it was by virtue of a single standard that all unholy things are unholy and all holy things holy. All right. So, what is a dog? You need to tell me what it is that makes all dogs the same. As a matter of fact, the rule for giving a definition, this isn't a class in definition making right now, is to tell what makes them all the same and how they're different. You know, what category they belong to, that's their sameness, but what makes them different. So, for example, we say, well, dogs are canines, but so are wolves, right? And so what makes them different? They're domestic, right. So we could go big. They're animals, great. They're mammals, great. That's not very, I need to zoom in because they're four-legged, great. That still covers a lot of ground. You say they belong to this family, this genus, but they're different from the others because they're domesticated. That makes a good definition. So Euthyphro agrees, and he doesn't give him any guff. He says, well, if that's what you want, Socrates, that's what I'll give you. Great. So, what is his second answer to the question?
He says it's what's lovable to the gods.
Yes. What the gods love. What is I guess our translation should be, even though our cover is different, it's the Penguin Classic story. Surely they use the same translation. What is agreeable to the gods is holy, and what is not agreeable is unholy. Simply splendid, Euthyphro. You've now answered in just the way I asked you to. So he's given a standard, a common, everything agreeable to the gods is holy, everything not is unholy. Admittedly, I don't know whether you're correct or not, but obviously you'll go on to demonstrate the truth of what you say. So he says, we have to examine this. Socrates won't let it sit. Does Socrates ever let anything just sit? How many of you read the unaborted Socrates with me when you were younger? All right, so you remember this Socrates. It was a pretty good, portrait of somebody who just won't let it go. Like a dog, with a bone. What's wrong with saying that what is agreeable to the gods is holy? Miriam.
Gods never agree on anything.
Gods fight all the time. The gods are constantly fighting. Look at the Iliad. Look at the Odyssey. So, Socrates says, in Plato's words better, he says, do the gods have quarrels? He says, yes. And do they fight about, whether, there's a pile of blocks there, whether there are 5 or 6 blocks. Would they fight over that? Euthyphro's like, no, they just count them. It's not really something you can fight about. So, okay, good. Well, what sorts of things might one fight about? Something you can have an opinion. Me having an opinion on the number of blocks on the floor is useless and pointless. I just count them. But he says, what's just and unjust, fine and despicable, good and bad, those are things you can have an opinion on it, right? Somebody thinks, some crazy person thinks that ice cream with bubble gum in it or cotton candy is good. They're so wrong. And I will argue with them on that. But how would we ever come to the conclusion which one of us was right? There are some opinions you can't, right? If someone says I'm cold and someone else says I'm hot, you gonna have a fight over it? Maybe. Depends on who you are. Henley's gonna fight over that. But you can't argue that someone else is not hot or cold. You're lying. You're not really cold. Why would they lie? They might have reasons. So, but somewhere in between the two, the things we can count or measure, and the things that you can't argue about because everybody has their own experience. What is good? What is beautiful? What is just? What is fine? What is noble? Those are the things that we and the gods could argue about. And hey, they do argue. So those must be the things they argue about. It is good for Odysseus to be chased across the seas and hounded to death, or it is bad for Odysseus to be chased across the seas. Then the gods too, my fine fellow, your account suggests that different parties think different things just. So in this case, the same thing might be just and unjust at the same time. And is that a problem? Can the same thing, I don't want to use that example. How far do I want to go with this? Can the same thing be black and white at the same time? Okay, Liam says no, Henley says yes. Give me an example. Okay.
No, that's
No. That's good. Henley's got a good answer. This is the answer I actually wanted, Henley.
right there.
Okay. Listen. The same thing at the same time in the same spot. No, because if I put my finger on one hair, that hair cannot be black and white at the same time.
Unless it's a multicolored filament. Yeah.
But even the filament could be separated into little parts. You'd have to get down to something that you can't separate into smaller parts at all.
At that point, that's, yeah.
So at some level, the same thing. What?
There's white specks on this.
Yeah, but if we got a microscope and we broke it apart, could we break out the white speck away from the black speck?
Yes.
With tweezers and so you guys are good. See, I'll give you that. But in general, it is a rule of logic that the same thing can't be opposites at the same time in the same way is how they say it. In the same spot, in the same location. All right. So the same thing can't be just and unjust at the same time. So that's blown up. So Euthyphro tries to change it just a little bit. Does anybody remember how he? I didn't ask you. This isn't the next question. He changes that. What the gods approve of is just. He decides to change it by inserting a word. And he thinks that this has fixed it. One little short word.
Agree on?
What they all approve of jointly is holy. What they all disapprove of. Anything they don't argue about. All right. I got to admit, I kind of like this. This seems good, but Socrates never lets anything sit. He says, are we to investigate further, Euthyphro, and see if it's well stated? Or are we to let it be, and to accept something from ourselves or from one another, agreeing that it is so, if somebody merely states that this is the position? Or should we examine what the speaker means? Should we look closely and poke at it and prod it and test it and see if it holds up? Or should we just, well, so-and-so says, and that sounds good to me. Can you give me an example of something that you might just accept? Somebody says it and I have reasonable, it's reasonable to think that they know what they're talking about.
Ice cream tastes good.
Okay. Yeah, that one I don't have to really trust you. I could go look out the window. Except maybe if it's cloudy. It's been cloudy every day, like this winter. Yeah, all I've lived through is this winter, and Henley says the sky is blue. No, it's not. It's gray. Okay, ice cream is good. Sky is blue. How about stealing is a sin? Should we make sure we know that that's true? I see that's a bad example because it's a command of God. Oh, here's a better example. The I-74 bridge across the Mississippi fell into the Mississippi and it's broken.
Let's go drive over that.
See?
Let's see how that works.
See, I need to know if that's true because I need to go to Iowa and I need to take the Centennial Bridge if that's true. But is it very important whether ice cream is good? It's important to me, but it's not important in the grand scheme of things. And I'm sorry, sky, don't go away because I say this, blue sky, but it's not very important that the sky is blue. But whether or not I'm going to die if I try to cross the bridge, that's important. So, which of those categories does what is holy or pious fall into? You think maybe for them, maybe for us too. It's pretty important. How do I please the gods? How do I not offend the gods? Maybe you better poke and prod at that definition and find out if it's true. Does that make sense to you guys? So, Euthyphro's up for it. He says, examine it. But I myself think that this has now been excellently stated. This is Euthyphro. That's done. Let's move on. He's like, well, let's take a look at it. Consider the following point. This is the point where we get a little convoluted. Is the holy approved by the gods because it's holy, or is it holy because it's approved? Euthyphro says, I don't know what you mean, Socrates. Maybe you said the same thing. I don't know what you mean. What does he mean? What's the difference? Is it holy? Is the holy approved by the gods because it's holy? Or is it holy because it's approved by the gods?
Is it already holy before they deemed it as good?
Ah.
And that makes it.
Okay. So, in number one, this is holy. Oh, and the gods look at it and they say, oh, it's holy. It's approved by the gods because it's holy. Or the gods look at it and say, I approve of you, and it becomes holy. Let's try number two first, the second one. They look at it and say, oh, that is holy, I approve of it. What might be the problem with that?
They might not all agree on that.
Okay, but we did change it to they all look at it. What do these gods sometimes do in addition to fight?
Kill each other?
Well, they can't kill each other technically.
Oh, yeah.
If they say something one day, do they always say the same thing the next day? Change their minds. So, today, the gods say, oh, I approve of you, you are holy. Tomorrow, we don't know. What is holy or pious might keep changing because they might keep changing their minds. This is a problem. The other one maybe is better. Oh, you holy thing, I approve of you, say the gods. Does anybody see a problem with that? What's the problem, Miriam?
And what makes it holy?
What makes it holy? Something other than the gods. Something above or outside of the gods has made this thing holy, and then the gods look at it and say, oh, it is holy, I approve of it. In which case the gods aren't the top of the line. There's somebody above them making things holy, and then we kind of have the same problem all over again. It seems so good, and Socrates can't ever let anything sit. So this is the first problem. Okay. Then he says, enough of this, says Socrates. Seeing that you seem to me to be taking things easy, I'll try to help you find a way of explaining holiness to me. And don't you withdraw exhausted before the finish. See whether it doesn't seem necessary to you that everything holy is just. Seems so to me, says Euthyphro. Then is all that is just holy? Is everything holy just, or is everything just holy? Or are they equal to each other? Is justice holiness? Here's what he's asking, really. And you've all seen these in your... Oh, I put it there just so I wouldn't forget. I forgot. So we have one of these things. So is it like this or like this? So this is the just, and is holy a part of that? And there's other things that are all just, you know, and holy is just one part of it? Or is this holy, and the just is just a part of it, and there's other things? He picks this one, I believe, and he says, just is kind of divided in half. And you have the part looks after the gods, and the part that involves relationships with people, right? Like not cheating them and whatnot. This is what his question asks: is this a part of this, or is this a part of this? It's okay. I think holiness is a part of justice, and that's the next question I asked you. Euthyphro says that holiness is the branch of justice which looks after the gods. Let me find where he first says that. Okay. What problem does Socrates have with this definition? And there are multiple answers to this. I feel like there are multiple problems. What did you guys find?
It brings them back to that old definition.
Okay, eventually, through a long series of steps, which we will follow, it is bringing them back to the gods approve of it, or the gods disapprove, and they're stuck again. Did anybody put something else? This is true. Anybody put any of the interim steps? No. So here's how he gets there, and that is where he leads him. So what do you mean by looking after? He says, so like the shepherd looks after sheep? Like cattle farmers look after their cattle? And what do shepherds do for the sheep? Well, they make them better. They make them healthier and safer and stronger. So is that what we do? Do we make the gods better? And Euthyphro says, well, of course, that's not what I mean. Of course we don't make the gods better. Socrates says, for their advantage, then? And he says, yes, for the advantage of the gods. Well, then, is holiness looking after the gods of benefit to the gods? And he's back to that. No. Euthyphro finally, no, you don't understand. It's like slaves looking after their masters. I get it, says Socrates. It would be a kind of service to the gods. Yes. And could you tell me what goal the service to the gods have? Sure. He gives examples. What does service to shipbuilders do? What's the goal? A ship. What's service to a builder for? For a house or a building. He says, well, what does our service to the gods make? He says, well, lots of good things. Socrates says, yeah, generals, army generals do lots of good things too, maybe. But they have a main goal: win the war. Farmers do all sorts of good things. They have a main goal: grow food. So he says, what is the principal aim of the gods' endeavor? What are the gods doing with our service? Euthyphro says, If one knows how to say and do things gratifying to the gods in prayer and sacrifice, this is what's holy. And such conduct is the salvation not only of households, but also of opposite of what is gratifying is impious and turns everything upside down and wrecks it. Okay, Socrates, this is great. So holiness is the science of giving and getting from the gods. It's a skill in trading between gods and men. Which is okay, if you want to call it that, Euthyphro says. What could these gifts of ours to the gods be, Euthyphro? He says, what else do you think but honor and tokens of esteem, and as I said just now, gratification. So it is something the gods have found gratifying, which is another way of saying something they approve of, something they like. And we're right back at the beginning. But Socrates says, oh, then we must inquire again from the beginning about what the holy is, and I'll not be willing to play the coward before I learn. Don't make light of me, but apply your mind in every way and do your best to tell me the truth. He goes on for an entire paragraph, but Euthyphro's response is, another time, Socrates. Right now I have an urgent engagement somewhere, and it's time for me to go. This is how lots of talks with Socrates end. You might remember from the unaborted Socrates, this is often how they ended, right? It's like, often it was more like, I have a headache. I need all. But there's always an excuse. When we get to the end of this dialogue, do we know what holiness and piety are? We don't. We don't know. We know what it's not. That helps. We know where not to look for it. It's like the Cat in the Hat video. Thing 1 and Thing 2. This is very loosely based on the book. And they come and they want to find something that, you know, the two kids have lost. And he starts looking at calculatus eliminatus. They look every place and then they decide where it's not, you know, and they mark every place in the house. Of course, they make marks all over the walls and stuff. It's not here, it's not here, it's not. So now we know where it's not. It's not what's approved of the gods. It's not just a series of examples, but we're just left, the reader is left not knowing. You're going to read some more Plato, you need to get used to that. He's not going to tell you the answers. That's not what he's making you think about the questions. Because I don't know if it ever occurred to me to think about how I would define, I mean, God's will. As a Christian, God's will is piety. We don't have a problem with the pious being what God approves of because our God is all good. But I never would have thought the benefit that I have in that, because if your gods are not all good, what's the definition of pious or holy? We don't know. Now, having read that, Euthyphro's experience, and remember, Euthyphro is apparently a friend of Socrates. Does Euthyphro seem angry at Socrates at any time in this dialogue? Did he strike you as angry? Did he say, oh, Socrates, leave me alone, or anything? No. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right, Socrates. I guess we'll have to change that. At the end, he doesn't say, Socrates, you are driving me nuts. I'm leaving. He says, oh, maybe another time, Socrates. I have somewhere I have to be now. Can you imagine there might be cases where the person involved might get angry with Socrates? Yeah. Can you imagine if you were standing there being cross-examined like Euthyphro, and a crowd gathered and watched you be exposed as someone who said you knew and then didn't know anything? I don't want that to happen to me. If somebody came up and did that to me publicly, I'd be angry. Some people got angry. Some people got angry, and so that is why Socrates finds himself in court. So let's take a look at the apology. Remember that apology in ancient writings, and even not very ancient, you know, Cardinal John Henry Newman has an apology, right? And it's not, I'm so sorry I became Catholic. This is the defense of why I have theologically gone this direction and left the Anglican Church. So remember, this doesn't mean Socrates say he's sorry ever? Who knows? Is Socrates sorry? He's not sorry at all. So you need to remember, and several times he says this in this dialogue, it is not like modern courts where you can go and maybe the trial will last a week. I once got to be on jury duty, and I was really excited. Everybody says, oh, I got jury duty. I'm like, I got jury duty. And they paid me, and they took me out to lunch. It was awesome. And I think I was there 2 or 3 days. And it was just a small, it wasn't like a big high-profile murder case or anything, It was a smaller case. But I was there more than 1 day. Athens, They set a timer, and that's how long you have to give your statement. When it runs out, you're done. And this is the timer. It's a water clock. Very much same principle as an hourglass, right? You put water in the upper receptacle, and they've made a hole down here that you can't really see of a size that they know the rate that it will go. So if you put X amount of water in, it will take X amount of time for it to drain down, and when this is empty, you're done. So just like an hourglass. This is a water clock from slightly before Socrates' time, but probably very much like what they had going every time somebody got up to speak in this trial. So Socrates had X amount of time. So this is why periodically in the Apology he says, there's little that I can do to convince you in the set time given me. Or I have little time. If I had more time, I might be able to explain this to you, but this is the time I've been given. So this is the constraints he's working under. And before we look at any details, how did this apology strike you? Did Socrates really, really seem to you to want to convince them, or did he seem not to care very much? Or is it somewhere in between? This is one of the things you can't be wrong about because this is your opinion, right? Yeah, go ahead, Liam.
He acted like it was for their own good that they realized what he was doing.
Yeah, say again, what was for their own good?
That they realized that he was in the right.
Okay, definitely. It would be, okay, so can you imagine, let's just take what Liam said. It's for your own good that you come over to my way of thinking. Can you imagine going to court and defending yourself and telling the jury, y'all be better off if you agree with me? What? Then how about if the guy who's pressing charges against you, you call him up, and this might work in your favor, I guess. He calls Miletus up, right? We'll look at this in a minute. And cross-examines him and makes him look like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Is that going to win you friends? He just publicly embarrassed someone else. Part of the reason he's there is for publicly embarrassing people. I have a love-hate relationship with the Apology. I really like it, but I was like, Socrates, you idiot. Why would you do that? It's going to alienate everyone. Okay. What does Socrates say are the charges against him? And he actually groups them into 2 areas, but I will take anything you found. I will not take anything you found. Anything that's actual charges.
I put the old and official charges.
Okay, and do you remember what the old and... Oh, yes, that's exactly the 2 groups. Perfect, Luke. So let's talk about the old first. What are the old charges? What does he mean by the old charges? Does anybody remember? Okay, so one hint of that is, remember this little excerpt from the clouds that we read, and remember, I am traversing the clouds and examining the sun, and I'm above you. What do you want with me, mortal? He says from his basket. All right, and this is how he's been portrayed on stage. He's just so high above everyone else. He's just a know-it-all. Does anyone like a know-it-all? Even if they really do know it all. If you know it all, don't say it all the time. So here's how he describes it. This is him quoting the old charges. There's a clever man called Socrates who has theories about the heavens and has investigated everything below the earth and can make the weaker argument defeat the stronger. This is very much what Aristophanes says in the play The Clouds. It is these people, gentlemen, the disseminators of these rumors, who are my dangerous accusers, because those who hear them suppose that anyone who inquires into such matters does not also believe in gods. And the most problematic thing of all is that it is impossible for me even to know and tell you all their names, unless one of them happens to be a playwright. And that would be Aristophanes, who wrote The Clouds. So, my critics fall into two classes: my immediate accusers, the ones Miletus and the ones who charged me, and earlier ones whom I have mentioned, the old and the new. The old accusers grew up hearing people talk about Socrates, right? Going to that play. Hearing their parents, if their parents weren't Socrates fans. You know, Socrates was at it again. And I don't know. Oh, I love it when that happens. It's kind of scary though when you go outside. Like if they wanted to hurt you, they could. They could do some serious damage before you could get away. Fortunately, they're too stupid to know this. Don't tell them. I don't know. Okay, I will not ask you because that's mean. I will give you an example from my life instead. So, do any of you know there used to be a show called Hee Haw? It was a... You should all go home and Google Hee Haw. And it's got to be all over YouTube. Anyway, it was a country music show. But they had really bad jokes and goofy stuff. And there was this lady who wore this hat. And she saw the price tag on it, except I thought it was a tea bag. I was really little. Okay, it's like, why does she have a tea bag? It was a price tag I learned when I was like 25. It occurred to me. So I don't know why we watched Hee Haw, because my dad liked to make fun of country music. But then he'd turn on Hee Haw. It was bad jokes, and they were all like hicks and very rustic, and then Buck Owens or Roy Clark would come on and sing a song, and they had guest stars and stuff. Okay. And then, so I grew up hearing my dad describe country music and make fun of Buck Owens, the host of Hee Haw. And so I have quite the prejudice against country music, you know. It was like Jennifer Nettles, the Sugarland lady, or Reba McEntire. Oh, good heavens, I can't stand that accent. But I think it's just because I grew up hearing it mocked, right? And so I don't think there's anything wrong with talking in a certain way. I just grew up under someone who just talked negatively about it. Same thing happened in the households of some of these people who have now grown up, because Socrates has been doing this for years. And now these people are grown up, and they grew up hearing their parents disparage him. That's hard to fight against. That prejudice is really hard to fight against. Hee haw. Look for it. You won't be disappointed. What did you learn from Mrs. Ferguson today? You never know what you're going to learn.
Yes.
So he says this is the reason there are old charges. Here are the new charges. This is the official charge now. Socrates is guilty of corrupting the minds of the young and of believing in supernatural things of his own invention instead of the gods recognized by the state. Such is the charge. Let us examine its points one by one. You corrupt young people, and you make up supernatural things, and you don't believe in the gods. Those last two are kind of connected. So, here's when he decides to call Meletus up. Come here, Meletus. Get on the witness stand. Let me ask you some questions. So, Meletus, obviously, if you're charging me with corrupting young, you've really studied the whole youth situation and education, and this is really important to you. It's like, yes, it is. So, do you think that whoever educates young people is responsible to make them better? Yes, I do. So since you know all about these things, Meletus, who is it that can make them better? And he says, the laws. Socrates says, yeah, that's not exactly what I'm asking. I said who. You need to answer the question. All those people on the jury, they make the young better. This ought to win points with the jury, you'd think. Like, okay. So they, just some of the jury or all of them? All of them. Great. How about these people watching? How about these spectators in court? Can they make the youth better? Yes, all of them. How about the members of the council? Yes. How about the members of the assembly? All the government agencies? Yes. So it would seem the whole population of Athens has a refining effect upon the young except myself, and I alone corrupt them. Is that your meaning? Most emphatically, yes. Wow. Okay. So tell me, Meletus, is it everybody who knows how to make horses better, or just, stable keepers? Well, just the stable keepers. Is it everybody that knows how to make sheep better, or just the shepherds? Just the shepherds. Is everybody knows how to make a good ship, or just the shipbuilder? Just the shipbuilder. Wow. But everybody but me knows how to make the youth better. Socrates. This is what he did. He says, so do you think I do it on purpose? This is making people bad. I do it on purpose, or is it accidental? Oh, no, you do it on purpose. Great. Do you think, Meletus, that it's better to live among people who are bad people or good people? Do you want to live with people who are bad people, or do you want to live with people who are good people? What would you say? I want to live with good people. Why do you want to live with good people?
Make you better?
They'll make you better, for one, and they won't do bad things to you, too. So, Meletus, let me get this straight. You're saying I intentionally take the people I have to live with in this city and make them bad. On purpose. I'm so stupid as to not realize that I'm going to make them bad, and then I have to live with them and they're going to do bad things to me. Is that what you're saying? Point 2 for Socrates, but maybe not, because he's really being annoying. So, Meletus, do you assert that I believe in no gods at all and teach others to do the same? Yes, I say that you disbelieve in the gods altogether. Great. So I teach supernatural things and I disbelieve in the gods. Yes. So Would anyone believe in, I don't know, nautical things if there were no navy or ships? Would anybody believe in, you know, canine matters if there were no canines? Why would somebody believe in supernatural matters and say there are no gods? Gods are the supernatural matters, Meletus. What's wrong with you? He did that. He didn't say that. That would have changed it. He didn't have to say it. Eventually, he has to say things like, you know, you have to answer. You're in court. Because he just sits there, obviously. Because he knows the answer is going to make him look bad. Or sometimes Socrates gets impatient. He says, no? Well, I'll answer for you. The answer is yes. Yeah, this is how it goes. So why? Let me see if I want to go here before I look at this. Tell me the story about the oracle and Socrates. This is the next question, but you can tell me the whole story if you want to, or as much of it as you remember. What does Socrates' wisdom have to do with the oracle?
Basically, the oracle said that there should be wiser. And then Socrates tried to find someone that was. And then he found out that they weren't actually that wise.
Yeah. And his friend went to Delphi. And he's like, nobody's wiser than Socrates. Socrates said, well, that's not true. So he goes to somebody notable for wisdom. And he says, I started asking him questions. I found that they really don't know anything about it. So I went to someone else, went to a politician. He didn't know anything about it. I went to a poet, an artist. He didn't know anything about it. So I guess that's his response, right? He goes around and asks people, and that's what Liam said. In what sense did Socrates claim that he was wise? You know, since Socrates, this has become, I don't know, have you heard this before? You know, that the wise man knows he knows nothing. Or this comes from Socrates. So since Socrates, we're used to hearing this idea. I'm trying to look at how he, okay. I'm going to find exactly where he says it. Why did I not underline it? Hang on. It's got to be in this section. You know what? I can't find it, guys. It's making me upset. Well, you all got it. He mentions it only here. He says, you know, when you posted me at Potidaea and Amphipolis and Delium, which hopefully are somewhat familiar names to you because these were sites of engagements in the Peloponnesian War, and Socrates was there. He says, I remained at my post like anyone else and faced death. It would indeed be shocking if he'd run away because of being afraid of death. For let me tell you, gentlemen, that to be afraid of death is only another form of thinking that one is wise when one is not. It is to think that one knows what one does not know. But this was a really kind of earth-shattering, insightful comment that we just, oh, wisdom is knowing you don't know. But do we really believe it? Do we act that way? I feel like we could spend the rest of our lives pondering the things we don't know and things we pretend we know. Anyway, Socrates is not afraid to say, I don't know. Do you know? Why does he describe himself as a biting fly? In what way is he a biting fly?
He's constantly nagging at Athens, like waking them up as if they're a horse.
Yeah. And not only a horse, he says a large, thoroughbred horse, which because of its great size is inclined to be lazy and needs the stimulation of some stinging fly. It seems to me that God has attached me to this city to perform the office of such a fly. And all day long I never cease to settle here, there, and everywhere, rousing, persuading, reproving everyone. You will not easily find another like me, gentlemen. And if you take my advice, you will spare my life. So Socrates says that he hears a divine voice. And he says this earlier. I'm not going to be able to find it either. Maybe it's here. I am subject to a divine or supernatural experience, which Meletus saw fit to travesty in his indictment. It began in my early childhood, a sort of voice which comes to me, and when it comes it always dissuades me from what I am proposing to do, and never urges me on. It is this that debars me from entering public life, and by that he means going into politics, canvassing and becoming an important man in politics. And a very good thing, too, in my opinion. Because you may be quite sure, gentlemen, that if I had tried long ago to engage in politics, I should long ago have lost my life, without doing any good either to you or to myself. So he has this voice, whatever that means, only says, don't do that. It never says, you should do this, you should do that. It only, when he's going to do something, it always says, don't do it. And his divine voice did not tell him not to go to court that day. Why not, does he think?
Because it's a good thing and his conscience only denies bad things.
Yeah. Because it's not something he should be kept from. He says, I suspect that this thing has happened to me is a blessing. And we are quite mistaken in supposing death to be an evil. I have good grounds for thinking this is so, because my accustomed sign could not have failed to oppose me if what I was doing had not been sure to bring some good result. So he ends, they convict him, and then he comes back and they say, oh, we find you guilty. Socrates, what do you propose as punishment? Well, let's see. What do I deserve for doing such good to Athens? How about free food in the public cafeteria for life? That's what I deserve. Did he really think that was going to win anyone over? Well, the sentence was death. Although he says, it was a pretty close call. It was pretty closer vote than I thought it was going to be. And he leaves them to go to the prison and wait till the ship comes back from Delos. And he says, now it is time to be off, I to die and you to live. But which of us has the happier prospect is unknown to anyone but God. Which of us is going to end up better? That'd just be another form of saying, we know when we don't know. You think you know. And so they put to death a man who had devoted his life to wandering around trying to help people see what is wisdom and truth and goodness, what is holiness and justice and piety, because they were just sick and tired of hearing him talk, because he offended them, because he embarrassed them. Here's what I want you to do for writing for next week. Not this. Maybe I can sit back further so Luke can see it. Maybe I can just, no, I can't move. See, I'm tied to the camera. I've got my notes over here. I don't want to drop my notes. Okay, if I can remember. All right. You are going to do a comparison paper, which is 5 paragraphs. You know, you did a refutation for me for the one. This doesn't really have a refutation because you don't have a position you're defending. You're not saying one is better or one is worse, so there's nothing to refute. So just 5 paragraphs. I want you to compare Socrates. Anybody know who I'm going to have you compare him to? Oh. No. Yeah, Luke's got it. And Christ. I've already dropped some things as we've been talking about. Think of how they ended their lives, why they ended their lives. I will also inform you of something that might be unknown to you but might be helpful. Socrates never wrote anything down. Everything we know about him comes from his students, his disciples. You have 2 choices. So I'd like you to briefly write down the 2 ways you can lay a paper like this out, okay? You're going to have an introduction and you're going to have a conclusion. This is as always. And all the normal things that go in introductions and conclusions apply. You can tell me who these 2 people are. You can list the ways in which you're comparing them or how they differ. There's one big way they differ, obviously. Hopefully we can see that. You don't have to only have comparisons or only have contrasts. In other words, you can say ways they're the same and ways they're different. Both are legit. Like you could have all ways they're the same, all ways they're different, or a mix. Okay? So here's way number 1. Describe the first person. Just tell a little bit about what we know about them and how we know it. Describe the second person and tell a little bit how we know. And then find 3 points of comparison or contrast and discuss them. So 3 ways in which they're the same and how they're the same. Explain it. Or 3 ways they're different and explain it. How are they different? Or a mix. That's one way. However, you might like to do it another way. Just comparison 1, comparison 2, comparison 3. Sometimes I give you 2 options because sometimes one of them just jumps out at people like, oh, I like the way that's set up. And not everybody likes the same way. These are both legitimate ways to do a paper like this. So, and by comparison, it could also be a contrast. So, you know, obviously one of them is God. One of them is not. And you know, I'm not gonna go on and on about this because I want to see what you guys come up with. We're towards the end of the school year, and I want to step away a little bit and let you guys populate papers with your own ideas. But I would like all your figures of speech. We will call them figs of speech. I was going to say I should get a picture of a fig and just hold it up to figs of speech. It could be our mascot. We could get a fig costume and get somebody to dance around. I feel like Henley would do that. Exactly, he agrees. Oh yeah, bring it on. Give me the fig costume. Are there any questions about this? There really should be plenty, when you think about, oh, and another one just popped into my head. Compare Jesus in front of the court to Socrates in front of the court. That would be another. You could probably do the whole paper just on that and find 3. What would you say, Miriam? Yes, do this for next week. We are, however, going to, so we have only 7 more classes. 7 more meetings. And so that's really not very many papers anyway, because I won't assign a paper at our last meeting because I'll never get it from you. So we only have 6 more meetings where you can give me a paper. And one of them I've just given you. So there's only 5. But I think what we're going to do, I think I mentioned this, we've had a lot of practice and I've given you a lot of feedback. So what I'm going to do is start really, really carefully editing and giving you feedback and then having you do rewrites, right? Just I might say, hey, this is a good beginning, but could you explain this a little further? And just have you go. And I don't think you do handwrite. Do you type your papers? So you all type? Yeah, you all type your papers. That makes it easy because my handwriters now have to write the whole thing out. But I thought, well, either if I give them a new paper, they have to write it. If I give them an old paper, really all they have to do is rewrite the old paper but make the changes or suggestions. Or if your figs are a little off, I might ask you to correct them. So we're probably going to, you're not going to have as many new papers to work on for the rest of the year. But I'd like to get a few papers just really polished, just prime, so that you can feel good about yourself as you go into the summer. For next week, this is the last thing, and it is also quite important. I'm glad, I almost forgot. We are beginning, I cannot play this up enough, probably one of the most formative books in all the history of Western civilization, Plato's Republic. I mean, it is philosophy. It is the fountain. It is the, I played it up enough. Because of that, I looked back at the schedule I had set for us, and I just kind of had us ripping through it. No. So you will be happy to know I am slowing it down. So and we may not even get to Aristotle. And you know what? Aristotle's kind of tough. We might even I might bring in the Aristotle book or have you bring it in. We might just look at a couple of paragraphs, But we're going to take more time on the Republic because I think that is more fruitful. So it says in your reading guide, books 1 through 3. That is a lie now. That is a mistake. 1 and 2. Only read books 1 and 2. And I would just have you read book 1, but book 1's pretty self-explanatory. Book 1's not tremendously, although there's a lot to get out of it, but it's not difficult to follow. There aren't difficult arguments. But only read 1 and 2, even though it says 3 in your reading guide. And then I will just give you a weekly update, and you can just update your reading guide what you should read for each week. And I think we're going to turn a 3-week reading into a 5-week reading or a 6-week reading or something like that. Okay. That is all. Oh, we aren't done at noon. We're done at 12:15. Okay, that's okay. No worries. See, I got all worried. Like, oh, crud, I haven't done the writing yet. I got to get a move on. I skipped over some stuff. Let me just go back and highlight some things. Luke's thinking, oh, you weren't going to tell me, right? You're just going to get up and leave.
I had my shades on.
Too bad. I mentioned one place where he mentioned the Peloponnesian War, and I was wanting to mention the other one. He said, when you posted me at Potidaea, Amphipolis, I didn't run away. Let's see if you remembered this. He says, my voice, keeps me from engaging in politics. And you know what? I'd not last a day in politics anyway because you people would get rid of me. And maybe he doesn't mean execute me, but have we seen a good portion of people get, ostracized from Athens? I mean, Thucydides has been exiled. Aristides, if you remember, Aristides the Just came back, and he was the guy who came back and told Themistocles, dude, you're almost blockaded in the harbor at Salamis. He says, good. I set that up. You go in there and tell them. They won't believe me. You might remember I told you about Miltiades, who was the hero at Marathon, and then he took some money and decided to go sort of pillaging, and then hurt his leg, and they came back and they fined him instead of banishing him because he was laying there on a pallet. They had to carry him in, and then he died of his wound. They don't treat people very well. And remember Nicias, who said, yeah, I'd rather just die here in Sicily because I know what they do in Athens to generals that go back and they're not happy with. So if you did have somebody who was saying the sort of things on a public platform that Socrates was saying, this might be true. But I'm going to mention the war again in a minute, but listen to this statement. No man on earth who conscientiously opposes either you or any other organized democracy and flatly prevents a great many wrongs and illegalities from taking place in the state to which he belongs can possibly escape with his life. I'm going to read that again. No man on earth who conscientiously opposes either you or any other organized democracy and flatly prevents a great many wrongs and illegalities from taking place in the state to which he belongs can possibly escape with his life. Now, are we technically a democracy, America? Technically. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, for which we are a republic. So technically we're a republic. We aren't a pure democracy because everybody doesn't vote on everything. We elect people who vote and make decisions on our behalf, and then we get rid of them if we don't get rid of them. You know what I mean? We don't re-elect them. That's what I should say, if we don't like what they do. But, see, Miriam nodded when I said, are we a democracy? And why would you nod? Because technically, I mean, not technically we're not, but in practice. So theoretically we're not, practically we are, because so many things are done on a democratic basis. Local government. We all vote, well, we is republic, I guess, we mayor and city council and whatnot, but the closer it gets to us, the more democratic it is, and the bigger it gets, the more of a republic it is. But we do a lot of voting. We feel we have a stake in the decisions that are made. And in that sense, we're a democracy. So what did Socrates say about people in a democracy that I just read? What will people in a democracy do, and who will they do it to? I'll read it one more time because you don't have it in front of you, and that's mean. No man on earth who conscientiously opposes either you or any other organized democracy and flatly prevents a great many wrongs and illegalities from taking place in the state to which he belongs can possibly escape with his life.
Anyone that opposes them is going to be killed.
And these people opposing them, what are these people opposing them trying to do?
The right thing.
The right thing. Well, that's a pretty nasty statement to a jury and an audience in a democracy, saying, I know you people. I know how democracies work. Do we feel like democracy is a good thing? When we say democracy, is it positive or negative? Positive. I mean, what do we want to do? We spread democracy across the world. It's a democratic government, and, it's not like you know, the Ayatollahs in Iran or whatever. Like, we're better than that. We're a democratic government. You know what? Plato has some really hard things to say about democracies. And we're going to meet it again in the Republic, which, as you can guess from the title, has something to do with governments. Okay, so he goes on. After that sentence, it says, the true champion of justice, if he intends to survive even for a short time, must necessarily confine himself to private life and leave politics alone. If you want to be a good person in a democracy, says Socrates, you better not try to go into public service, public office. I don't know, what do you think about that? Is it wrong for Christians, Socrates is not a Christian, but we would consider Christians people who care about truth and justice, to do the right thing. Is it wrong to run for public office and be a politician if you're a Christian? What do you think, Henley? What do you think? You don't know.
Depends on the decision you're making.
What kind of, what, can you give an example?
Like, if you're running for mayor, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, if you're running for president and you're making decisions that affect people's lives and they're not decisions that line up with Christian beliefs, then yeah, that's wrong. But you could also have a positive impact for a lot of Christians in the country if you are president. Just depends on how you use it.
When the higher up office that you hold, because we're a very large country. Some of you read the Federalist Papers with me last year. You know, we talked about the enormous size, and people said, but you can't do a republic like that. And so they really put a lot of stock in local, you know, all these local counties and states. But honestly, the more people you're over, right, then the more opinions you have to take into account. And that makes it difficult. You care about those people. I mean, if you're a good politician, you care and you want to do what they want because that's what they elected you for, but you also want to do what's best for them. And that's what Socrates was trying to do, wasn't it? What's good for these people? To know their own ignorance. To not wander around thinking that they know something that they don't know until they get themselves in trouble. It's difficult. It's a difficult decision. Maybe maybe one person can do it and another person can't. You know, one Christian can navigate that and another would have trouble. Remember what we learned from Thucydides. What was the attitude in Athens of how we decide whether or not we should do something or vote for something? Remember, we're going to kill all the male population of Miletus for whether it's useful. Expediency. Is that something that a person who wants to do good can get on board with? It really isn't. So even not in a Christian world, like Socrates would have had real problem fitting in with, let's do it if it benefits us. Because Socrates has been doing something, and is it going to benefit? Well, we do not know if death will benefit him. It doesn't appear that it's going to benefit him. And then right after he says that, listen to what he says. The only office which I have ever held in our city, gentlemen, was when I served on the council. It so happened that our tribe was presiding when you decided that the 10 commanders who failed to rescue the men who were lost in the naval engagement should be tried in block. Now, if you remember, this was not in, was it in Thucydides or was it in the part that I retold you after? I think it's in the part I retold you after, if Thucydides didn't get that far. There was a big naval battle, And Athens lost a few ships, and the men were in the water, but a storm came up. Do you remember this story? A storm came up, and those generals were not able to rescue the men because of the storm. And then, keep in mind, these generals won the battle. And they got back to Athens, and they brought them up on charges. They tried them in court for not rescuing the men. He says, but according to Socrates, Plato here, you decided to try them in block. In other words, they're all going to be tried as one unit. You're not going to try them individually. Which was illegal, as you all recognized later. On this occasion, I was the only member of the executive who opposed your acting in any way unconstitutionally and voted against the proposal. And although the public speakers were all ready to denounce and arrest me, and you were all urging them on at the top of your voices, I thought that it was my duty to face it out on the side of law and justice, rather than support you through fear of prison or death in your wrong decision. This happened while we were still under a democracy. And then he goes on to talk about what happened when the tyrants were set up by Sparta after the war. This is his one example. I'll give you a concrete example. You did something illegal. You all did something illegal. Again, is this going to win him votes from the jury? I feel like not. And I'm the only one who stood up and said, you can't do that. It's a wonder you didn't kill me then. All right. We used up our 15 minutes, Luke. Aren't you proud of me? All right. Okay, we're done. I will see you next week.